All right, so we're here with Alex Beck. Finally, bro. It's a long time coming here. The first podcast. Obviously, I know you decently well, but for the audience here, like just give like a brief introduction, like name, where we're at right now, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, for the audience here, if you guys don't necessarily know me, I guess it's nice for you guys to meet me here. But my name is Alex Beck. Currently, brief introduction. Essentially, what I do is high ticket sales. So I am what you call a closer. I work for Iman Gadzhi. Currently closed a little over 2 million for him in the past year. Previous to this, I was closing for Alex Hormozi. So, definitely worked for some big names here. And the journey's been crazy the past couple years.
No, that's super cool. And I think you do have like a really great story, like specifically in sales too. And so that's
Yeah.
what I kind of want to get into here. But yep, we're recording in Los Angeles here in the crib, first podcast. And so I think a good place to start is like, why don't you take us back to the beginning? Like, did you first want to work for like Iman and Alex and get into sales, or like how did this all start and what made you get into it from the beginning?
What brought me down this path was realizing that I need to make a change, as broad as that may sound. Essentially, what happened, I was 21, COVID just hit. We were 2 months into COVID, and I found out I was having a child, a daughter. And at that time, I was more focused on different passion stuff that I did, uh, doing content on social media. I was working in a restaurant, bartending, serving. Having my daughter changed my perspective into thinking that I need to stop being so selfish and find something that will give her a better life. So that's what forced me to start going the online business direction. Reason being is ultimately I just wanted freedom. So, my parents had me when they were 16 and 17. So I was a daycare kid. I grew up staying long hours in daycare because my parents both worked, and I didn't want that for my kids. So I decided to start going the online business direction.
And then when did you, like, to give a better timeline here, like at what, so like middle school, high school, were you doing any business, or at what time did you decide to like make this change?
Yeah, I was always interested in business, especially things like stock trading. I think at the time I was following what I think was working for me, and it was definitely not the business realm. It was having my daughter that just made me feel like shit. I need to do something that's bigger than myself, being 21. So I ended up getting into e-commerce. So that was the first thing I got started with,
Okay,
building
cool.
websites.
And then at what age and like when did you get started in e-commerce? Was that before having your daughter, or was that like after having your daughter, or when was that?
Yeah, that was before. Immediately when I found out I was having my daughter, probably a week later, I found the best business model to start that I felt like suited me best, which was e-com at the time, and just dove straight into it.
You dive straight into e-commerce, and like how does that go? Obviously a lot of people start e-commerce.
Yeah.
In the online business space, that's probably one of the most popular things to start. Like I've dabbled in e-commerce, I know a lot of people, but like how did that go for you?
Yeah. Luckily, I did really well starting off. And when I say well, I say more so being able to drive revenue, right? Profit margins was always the difficult thing. And it took me about a year to figure out how to get a good profit coming in. But the cool thing was that I got proof of concept right away, which made me continue pushing in that direction.
So you did well with e-commerce. Like what did that look like specifically in terms of doing well? Like what were the numbers? What were you selling?
Yeah. So for the first year, I was pretty much breaking even. After year one, that's when I really started hitting bigger numbers in the sense to where I was able to take home, 2 to 3K a month. But in hindsight, just to give you an idea of what e-commerce looks like, for me to take 2 to 3K home a month, I was pretty much driving 30K a month in revenue, selling products just to take home an 8 to 10% profit margin.
30K, 8 to 10% profit margins, you're looking at what did you say, like $3, $4, $5,000 a month profit?
If that.
If that, I mean, that's not bad, and it's definitely like a great start. I'm sure there's like a lot of people that would love to make $3,000 to $5,000 a month in e-commerce. It's like,
Yeah.
but the margins like are slimmer with that. So, now you have a daughter, you have e-commerce stores that are like somewhat going well and stuff. Like, where did that go from there? Did you continue to do e-commerce, or at what point did you decide to stop, and why?
So essentially what happened, I believe it was 2021. I was going through Q4 of scaling an e-commerce store, actually a baby store, funny enough. And what ended up happening, I ended December going through the past 4 months of scaling that store, past 3 months, and I did not bring home as much money as I thought I was going to with how much revenue I was driving and how much time I was putting into it. So I used to watch this guy, Alex Hormozi, still watch him. And essentially what I did, I was a big advocate for his book, $100 million Offers, and actually used that book to scale and structure my offer for those e-com stores for Q4. Didn't go the direction I wanted to. So I still remember the day, I believe it was a couple days into the new year for 2022. And I was watching Hormozi, just looking at his reels, and I saw him talk about some 19-year-old kid on his sales team making over 20K per month. And, I pretty much went from watching that reel to thinking, hey, if he could do it, then so could I. So literally watched that reel, exited out, searched his company, Gym Launch, which I knew of very well, and found the best way to apply.
Wow. So you're doing the e-com stores, and obviously like the profit was going somewhat well, a couple $1,000s a month.
Yeah.
And then you decide to, take a different path from, you're watching Alex and stuff. So you're watching Alex, and then you saw that there was a kid that he was helping mentor that was making 20K per month and doing very well in sales. And then did you apply from there? Like what did that do for you?
Quick note, Hormozi changed my life, bro. It is interesting to see when people follow their purpose. And I'm sure he did not think that he was going to change someone like myself's life. But through his content, through him sharing stories, through him sharing the story of Jacob, the person on his team that was 19, making 20K per month, it sparked a different type of fire in me and ultimately changed my entire life the past 2 years. I've actually sent him, I've spoken with him a couple times over DMs and so forth. When I joined Gym Launch, he just sold the company. So he was out as soon as I joined. But we've been in contact a bit, and, it is crazy. And I've thanked him multiple times just for, him being himself. It pushed me down this path and changed my life. So,
no, that's super cool. And I think he does put out like a lot of great content and help like a lot of people. Like I know I've learned like a ton from him as well.
yeah.
And so it seems like he kind of had you make that pivotal moment there when you have a daughter and you're trying to make a change. Is that right?
Yeah. I found Hormozi probably like 6 months to a year into ecom, but just the way he speaks just resonated with me so much, and it was almost like a mentor or figure that I needed that I didn't have, that I was able to get through consuming his content.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And so did you like apply to his company after that and then take the sales route, or where did you go from, watching his content and seeing all that stuff?
Bro, that's a funny story. So what I ended up doing after watching that reel, I searched up Gym Launch, their website. They didn't have anywhere like a jobs or career page on their actual website, so I couldn't figure out how to apply. So I ended up seeing on the actual Gym Launch website a place where you could book a call. I wasn't sure what it was for, but I figured it was to book a call to speak with someone on their team, maybe for job opportunities.
Yeah.
So I ended up booking a call for the very next day. Turns out the call was for actual gym owners to book some type of consultation call with their team. So, I showed up to the call 21, fresh-faced, I put a little button up on and was sitting on my mom's dining room table taking this call. And I knew enough information about their team, their sales team, the terminology they use to where I was able to hit it off with their actual consultant on that call. And they just ended up passing my name up the ladder. And eventually I got in contact with the right person who took me in for an interview. So
I got you. So you apply, you didn't know what the call button was for on there. You're like, all right, well, maybe it's for a job opportunity to talk to someone.
Bro, I had zero idea what I was getting into. All I heard was that there was a 19-year-old on his team making $20K per month. That was it. I had no idea it was for sales, didn't know what it was for. In funny story, about 6 months into me working in Gym Launch, I remember someone shared my story on a team in front of the CEO, Cale Owen.
Was he the CEO at the time when you were working at Gym Launch?
Yeah, he was. So by the time I went, Hormozi sold the company 2 months prior when I joined. Cale Owen was CEO when I joined. But anyways, in that meeting, their top closer and a guy who mentored me, his name is Sean, he shared my story on a call of how I applied and how I got the job. And I remember Cale Owen giving me some shit because he was saying that I was messing up their ad spend budget by booking a call, when I wasn't a gym owner, a qualified person to be speaking with their consultants. So
yeah, bro, they're spending a couple $100K a month and you're booking a call to mess up the ad spend.
Yeah, in hindsight, by the time he said that, I probably have made them, nearly $1 million for the company. So
yeah, we've all been there, bro. We want their attention to be higher. We don't want people to be clicking on our ads for no reason, lowering the CPL. But no, that's super cool. So you are now working at Gym Launch, and then where did you go from there?
Yeah. So, they hired me. I came in at a good time. It's that thing where timing meets a little bit of luck, and they happen to be scaling their sales team at the time. So they hired me as a cold caller. So, I was bottom of the barrel person on the sales team, just sitting there on the phones, cold calling gym owners throughout the day. So started off as a cold caller, did really, really well with that, surprisingly. Never done sales in my life. Broke a lot of records for them as far as sets that closed. So essentially I'd cold call gym owners, get them on a call with a consultant. From there, the consultant would close the deals. But did that for probably about a month before my numbers were so good that it was just logical for them to start moving me up the ladder. So
I got you. So how long did you cold call for? And then did you get moved up to like a setting position after that, or straight to closer?
Yeah. So their system is very different and very genius. So I started off as a cold caller, cold calling gym owners to get them on an actual podcast. So their setting position was a podcast host. Goal with that, and I don't want to dive too much into their whole sales process, but goal with that was to give immense value to those gym owners on that podcast. To where,
when you say podcast too, like what do you mean specifically by podcast in this situation?
Yeah, Gym Lords podcast. Search them up, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You'll find me on there. I was a host. So after a month of cold calling, that's what they moved me up to, was a podcast host, to where I'd meet with gym owners over Zoom to host a podcast to talk about their business.
So you're hosting gym owners on like a gym specific podcast with the company, and it almost works as like a setting system where, they talk about their business, all that stuff. And at the end of the podcast, you're like, oh, by the way, we have this program.
Yeah. I don't want to get sued here, but something along those lines, and it was a genius process, and it wasn't at all something deceivious where, we're getting him on a podcast to sell him something. It was about, and he talks about this in a lot of his content. If you give as much value as you could to people, it will make them inclined to want to work with you or even just hear you out. So that was the whole idea with the podcast, was let's promote gym owners. Let's talk about their business. Let's give as much value as we could. That way they feel inclined to work with our company. That way we could help scale their gym.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Just giving a ton of value to even people that are customers or not customers, it doesn't matter. Just putting value out there and then seeing what comes from it. And so,
Yeah.
you're like a podcast host and talking to these gym owners, and eventually did you move up to like a closing position within the company?
Yeah.
Or how did that go?
And we'll dive in that. Side note with that was probably such a good lesson that I've learned. Now at this point, I do a lot of consulting for agency owners, for salespeople, and a lot of questions that they have is like, hey, how do I get people to sit in front of me on an actual sales call here? And going through that process with Gym Launch just taught me so much that it's more than you trying to close a deal and make a sale. Right. And so now I'm able to leverage that experience to share with other agency owners, other business people, to where, hey, there's better ways to do things. That way, you can't just focus on bringing the money in, right? You have to actually help people and give value in order for yourself to be able to create a long-term business. So, but yeah, with that, with podcast hosting, I did that for about 4 months. So I was probably 5 months into the company when they decided to move me up to a closer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then how did that go when you moved up to closer?
Yeah. Funny enough, I know I talked about that reel. That kid, Jacob, I thought it was a fake story, bro. I was like, who knows if this is even fucking real here? But I ended up being his direct setter. So, Jacob actually trained me and taught me so much within the sales realm, and I owe the guy a lot. But yeah, so they moved me up to closer by month 5, and I did really well, bro. And I tell salespeople all the time that want to get into the same position as me, how do I become a closer? Where should I apply to become a closer? And if it wasn't for me starting at the bottom of the barrel and busting my ass, cold calling, setting, and so forth, there's no way that I would have been successful in sales or closing for Gym Launch. It was the fact that I went through that path, put the dirty work in, learned the skills that I needed to where by the time they put me in closer, I just hit the ground running.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So you're kind of saying that you starting at like a bottom tier position within like a bigger organization that had sales processes built out, many other salespeople on the team, some even making upwards of like $20,000 a month.
Yeah.
That helped you so much in your journey and like your skill sets where, you weren't making as much money at first, but in the long run, you have a much better foundation within sales overall.
Yeah. Bro, it is 100% the vehicle that you're in that matters most for you. One, to learn the things you need to, but two, be successful with sales. So, at this point, I talk to a lot of people that are trying to go down the same path as me. Some questions that they always ask is, hey, I got this job offer for this agency. It's a team of 5 people, and they want to have me come in and start setting and closing, but I also have to build out all these processes and scripts. And I don't think people realize that sets you up for failure. What pushed me down the path of success so fast was the fact that I was working for a nearly 9-figure company that had all these processes to where, the managers, the people who were training me were so well versed with sales that it just put me on this path for success. So
yeah, because I feel like it gives you a ton of room to grow, even though I'm not the best example of like this in the long run. But you starting at that bottom tier for a mid-8, almost 9-figure company, you have like so many people to learn from, so many resources, so much room to move up, where like you have a long like runway within that company.
Yeah, 100%. So, that was a huge thing, was that I came into a system that was already working. They just handed me the tools that I need, and I just started sprinting. That was it. And that should be the goal for every new person that's trying to get into sales. I always say that the biggest things to look at when deciding if you should take an offer is trusting the people that will be leading you, mentoring you, and the management. also in just believing in the offer as
Yeah.
well. Like I truly believe that I was helping people at gym launch,
Hmm.
which made me so convicted to put the hours in, put the work in, and I saw the results. So
Yeah, that's what I've heard from a lot of salespeople is like the conviction within the offer because, I mean, we can both agree there's a lot of bootleg offers out there, but
yeah.
I mean, you can speak more on this, but like, what do you feel like in terms of conviction on the offer? Do you feel like that's super important or does that not matter at all?
Yeah, bro, I refuse to work for an offer that I don't truly believe in. Right. And there was no logic behind that idea for me, really, other than just me wanting to work with people and for companies that I truly believed in. And ultimately, that's what sped up my path for success. So now at this point, I do know that any other future offers or sales positions I might take, that's a solidified fact for me that I'm going to look at before deciding if I should take that role. Do I truly believe in this? Am I truly helping people? And is this, something that I see a long-term vision with?
Mm-hmm. No, that I would agree with you on that. Like you got to have conviction in the offer you're selling, and so
Yeah.
kind of circling back a little bit here, you become a closer at gym launch, and obviously start closing there for a little bit, and then do you close there for a long time, or what happens after that?
Yeah. So funny enough, I did not close there
Oh, you
very
didn't close at
long.
all.
No, I did.
Okay.
Only for probably about 2 months
Mm-hmm.
before I decided to leave gym launch and start working for Iman Gadzhi.
How many deals did you close in 2 months over there?
Not a ton. They were ramping me up, and that's very normal for sales. If
Yeah.
you are a new person that starts closing, they ramp you up to the point to where you're ready to start taking a full calendar of
Mm-hmm.
calls. So I never necessarily got to the point to where I had a packed schedule. They were ramping me up slowly while I was still setting.
Okay.
That way, essentially within 2 months, I'd be taking a full calendar of calls. I just happened to leave before I got to that point.
I guess. And then, yeah, because it seems, it's a huge company. Obviously, you're learning a lot. There's big names, Kale Owen, Alex Hormozi behind the company. Like, what made you decide to leave to a new thing?
Yeah. Truly believing in Iman and his vision.
You moved to Iman's offer, but how'd you even find the offer? Like, how did you know Iman already, or how'd that go?
Yeah, I have a great story for that. So, when I started setting for Jacob Hopkins, so the 19-year-old kid that was making over 20K per month,
Mm-hmm.
he's from Texas. And you could check out Jacob's story as well, but he went to school in Malibu for a short period of time, so he had some friends down there. I'm also from Southern California. I live in Los Angeles. So, he hit me up and mentioned that he was going to be in Malibu and that we should get dinner together. So, I remember thinking in my head that one, this is a super valuable connection for me to make. So of course I'm going to take the offer and try and build that with him. But two, I remember watching this YouTube video. I don't even know who it was, but he was talking about, it's a funny correlation, but he was talking about the way that you win a girl over is by putting her in a uncomfortable situation where one, you see the real side of her, and two, you are the only comfort that she has in that situation. So the example he used, if you are going on a date with Kim Kardashian, you don't take her to Nobu. She's been there a million times, right? If you really want to close the deal with Kim Kardashian, you take her to the hood, to a taco shop, a taco stand, a truck, where one, she's probably never been there before, and two, she's totally out of her comfort zone. So the only way that she'll find comfort is through you. So one, you'll see the real side of her, and then two, she'll be more attached to you throughout that situation. So with Jacob, all that to say, he invited me to dinner, and I was like, God damn, I'm 2 years older than Jacob. I'm not about to have this kid take me out to a nice restaurant where he's going to pay for the bill. And it's probably a situation that he's done hundreds of times because he's making good money and connected with a lot of people. So I remember thinking back to that video and thinking, hey, what's something that I could invite Jacob to do that would put him in an uncomfortable situation where I could see the real side of him and to where I'd be his only comfort in the situation. So he's a Texas boy. He was down in Malibu. I was like, hey, let's go surfing, you know?
Yeah.
So funny enough, I've never explained this entire story to Jacob, but it was years since I've surfed when I invited him to go surfing. I ended up buying a new board, getting a wetsuit, renting a couple extra boards for him, just to take him out that day to build the connection and build the relationship. So, all that to say, that day when I took him surfing was the first day I've ever heard about Iman Gadzhi. No idea who he is. Jacob was the one who told me about him.
Whoa, slow down here for a second. So Jacob's coming out here. You saw a video that was like dating, and they're like, oh, you need to put a girl outside of her comfort zone.
Yeah.
So you're like, all right, I'm going to pull this trick on Jacob. These outlandish tactics are coming up with on the spot here. And then
it worked.
And then you guys went surfing in Malibu from there.
Yeah. And funny enough, Jacob was so much better at surfing than me, bro. Like I was damn near drowning out there, and Jacob was just shredding, doing so good. But yeah, so that's what ended up happening. You know, I drove probably 2 hours to go pick Jacob up in Malibu, spent the whole day before planning it, getting the boards, getting everything I needed, and took him surfing that day. And it was a fun time, bro. And I realized he's just a kid. He's just like me, you know?
Yeah.
But all that to say, in that time, I remember we're sitting on the sand, and he said, hey, do you know what Gents Croquet Club is? I had no idea what it was. And he explained to me, which, you know, for people who don't know, that's Iman's NFT project that he created, which is pretty much an exclusive club for high-level people. Jacob was a part of it. So he broke down what GCC was. He showed me his NFT token, and then also told me who Iman Gadzhi was as well. So that was the first time I've ever heard about Iman Gadzhi.
Yeah.
This was before I started even closing, so I was still Jacob's setter. And yeah, I shot Iman a follow on Instagram, and that's when I first heard about him.
Wow. And then what were your like initial thoughts? Like, yeah, obviously Jacob's telling you all these things. Like, what were your initial thoughts on Iman when he tells you about him and you follow him and stuff?
Not too many thoughts other than, God damn, this guy's young and he's making a lot of fucking money. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And then obviously you follow him and stuff. Jacob tells you about the opportunity, but where did that transition come from closing a gym launch to then working for Iman?
Yeah. So, you know, Jacob did not tell me about the closing opportunity for Iman. And I didn't put much thought into it. I was like, oh, okay, GCC, you know, Gents Croquet Club, Iman Gadzhi. Sounds cool. I'll follow him. Check out his YouTube videos. And what ended up happening probably 4 months later, I had a friend of mine who was also a closer on gym launch. He actually sent me a screenshot of Iman's Instagram story saying how he's hiring closers and that his normal closers are making well over 10K per month.
That's crazy. I think I remember seeing that story on his Instagram.
Yeah.
I didn't know Iman that well either, but I think I met you like roughly around that time.
Yeah.
I think you took your like last call for gym launch when I met you, and then you transitioned to like working for Iman. Like, even though I don't know all the specifics of it, but that's pretty funny. So JJ sends you that Instagram story, and like, do you apply to there, or how did that go?
Yeah. So JJ, and you know JJ, which is why you're saying by first name, but he was the other closer at gym launch that told me about Iman. We both ended up applying, and there were well over 2,000 applicants. They were only hiring one person.
Wow.
And I just decided to go through the process and landed the role.
How many people, do you know how many people applied if you were the only one to get accepted?
Yeah. Around 2,000 people.
2,000.
Not more. Yeah.
So out of 2,000, you're the only one that got the sales like closing position there.
Only person.
And why do you think that is?
A little bit of confidence, prayer. Seriously. And I think a lot of it was meeting Iman's CEO, Paul Daly, and me being able to win him over. So I think that's a big strength that I've been able to build, not that I had, that I built, being able to build relationships with people and being likable in a sense. So with Paul, which is Iman's CEO, he was the one handling the interviews, had quite a few one-on-ones with him. And we hit it off. And, he almost saw me as a younger version of himself that he wanted to take in.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I've heard some people talk about that kind of idea of like, if it's good, you have like a better opportunity if you just have like a little bit of confidence and prayer, like you said, to apply for these bigger companies and bigger names, because sometimes you might get a little bit lucky and these CEOs or these owners or founders or whatever, they might see you, like you said, as a younger version of themselves and then kind of take you under their wing and give you a chance, teach you some stuff and see where it goes.
100%. Paul's been a huge mentor for me the past, since I started working with Iman. So have a lot of appreciation for him.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you beat out 2,000 applicants. You're the only one that gets accepted as a closer. Are you the only closer on the sales team, or how many people did they have on the sales team?
Yeah, their team was relatively small at the time. So Iman on YouTube, I believe he had 100K subscribers.
You joined when he had 100K on YouTube?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it almost felt like a risk for me to leave Gym Launch to go to Iman. A sense it was like, shit, I'm working for a kid. He's younger than me, So what happens if he just decides, hey, I want to take a break from all this and go fuck off to Bali? And, he has enough money, right? But I believe closers, there were 3 of us, including myself. We had a sales manager, and then we had Paul running the show.
Obviously now Iman has grown like much bigger, his following and stuff. And I remember when I first saw him, probably when I was 15 or so, 16, like a random ad, but I was like, oh, it's just another guru internet money guy.
Yeah. And
kind of like people, I think Hamza's talked about this too. Like, oh, I thought this guy's lying, scamming, living in a penthouse apartment, this young, making all this money. And those were probably kind of my thoughts when I first saw it too. But the question I had is like, what gave you the confidence, or like, why did you end up making that decision to move from Gym Launch when you have a closing position to take a risk on like moving to a company like Iman's and working for them?
I've just realized that taking risks is what brings the big reward. Of course it has to be logical risks. So the logic for me was like, hey, do I trust Paul? Do I trust that he'll be a good mentor for me and someone that could teach me sales and steer the ship for this company for myself? Because in turn, as a sales guy, I make money based off them, based off Paul, based off Iman. Number 2 was that I really did believe, I still do, believe in Iman and his direction, the message he's trying to preach, changing people's lives, young men's lives. So it just felt so much more me working for Iman than selling for Gym Launch.
I see. So you kind of resonated with the offer and the team and like what they're building over there, more so like, you're not trying to be a gym owner and like build a gym necessarily.
100%. Coming from e-com, being a marketer, running a lot of ads, spending a lot in ad spend, moving to Iman's offer, which was just teaching people how to start an online business and agency. I mean, it was stuff that I knew like the back of my hand just from spending years in e-com. So I just felt very comfortable speaking about their offer compared to talking with 50-year-old gym owners, about what they need to change differently to scale their business. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're selling for Iman now. Paul won you over. He sold you to join the team.
He did.
Leave Gym Launch.
I was going to mention that. Part of me joining was how strong and how convicted Paul is. He interviewing, hiring people. Life is sales. And he definitely sold me into coming into that company.
Yeah, I mean, he's sales director, CEO now. Like, I hope he could sell people into the company,
Paul's a beast.
Yeah, for sure. And so you join the company and you're a closer there. It's a smaller team and all that stuff. But what were you kind of selling, and what did that look like when you first joined and getting ramped up and everything?
You know, I remember you had 100K, 150K subscribers,
Mm-hmm.
I think like 50,000 Instagram followers.
Wow.
And thinking in
That's
my head,
OG
like,
Iman.
yeah, OG Iman. He was showing up to every single meeting. I was talking with him every morning. Team was really small. And I say kid because he's a little younger than me, but this kid's about to pop. Like he's really about to blow up over this next year.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of me taking that bet. And yeah,
Did you feel like that? Did you feel like he was about to pop from what he would say in his videos, or what the company's message was, what he would say in the meetings? Like where did that feeling come from that he was going to like do very well?
Yeah, how good his content is and how relatable he is.
Yep.
He has such a strong story. Anyone from age 30 to 40 could relate to me, Iman. And then also your 14 to 16-year-old, 18-year-old kid that wants to make a change with their life.
Yep.
So, I was just really convicted in his content and was confident that myself as a sales guy was going to reap the reward from Iman growing over that next year.
Of course, bro. When I'm sure as a salesperson, when you're looking at the offers and the way the company's going, like, because there's ups and downs in business, like,
Yeah.
you want to be in those upsides when you're selling. You're joining the company, you feel like Iman's going to do very well. What product were you selling at the time? Like, what was like the price of the product and commission and everything?
Yeah. I've done some cross-selling for them. So they had a 10K offer at one point, sold that a bit. But the big thing I was selling, their normal ticket offer, which was BizOp. For people who don't know what BizOp is, essentially just teaching you how to start your own business.
Yeah.
So it was an info product, included coaching, killer offer, killer deal. And essentially it taught you everything you needed to start your own social media marketing agency. And then you also got coaching included as well. That way you'd have someone giving you guidance that entire year.
A question I wanted to ask is, like, you see all these videos, like people calling Iman a scam, like the courses he's selling, they don't work and all that stuff. Like, what are your thoughts on it firsthand, selling and talking to all these people?
So I have a good story for that. I remember with e-commerce, I ended up buying this program. I forgot the guy's name and he kind of fell off the map. I ended up spending $3,000 on his e-commerce program. Really my last dollars that I had and like money that was for my child, for my daughter. And, part of their marketing, not tactic, but their whole marketing angle was like, hey, we'll help you make 100K months in e-com.
Wow.
And, up front, I joined that program. It gave good value, but I was never a student that got close to 100K a month with that. But the big thing is it showed me proof of concept, right? Like being in that program and being able to be in a community where I'm watching other people that are succeeding with e-commerce through that program and making money and changing their life. It's ultimately what gave me confidence to continue in the online space. So I feel the same about the offers that I'm selling. I know very well for Iman that there are people that I'm selling this product to that are never going to be successful with starting their own agency. But I remember my story and I remember being one of those people, but ultimately that program I bought still changed my life.
Yeah.
Because it just gave me a different perspective and gave me proof of concept to continue in the online space. So even the people that I sell that maybe they won't be successful, I know that Iman's product community offer is so good that it will do enough for them to have that same mindset shift that I did.
I mean, I feel the same. Like when I was younger, obviously, like trying like e-commerce and drop shipping and all these different business models before like finding the successful one of reselling initially. But I kind of wish, like, because I saw Iman's ads, I saw Ty Lopez's ads, and I kind of wish that I had bought those products, even though they would have been out of my reach and stuff. And I'm not saying like everyone will be successful with them, like you said, but just the perspective shift it gives you and the people it gets you around, the connections you can make. Like it's all about putting in the work. I feel like, do you feel like, most of it is just putting in the work for these people, kind of looking for these opportunities?
Yeah, 100%. It's just like tenacity, relentless effort.
I kind of want to touch on also a little bit more. You briefly mentioned it there, and I know we talked about in the beginning, but like, I think a big part of your life is like having a daughter. What age did you have your daughter at again?
I believe I found out I was having her. I was 21,
Mm-hmm.
just turned 21, uh, I believe I had her at 22. God damn, the years are flipping on me. Yeah, so 21, had her at 22.
Okay, so you had her at 22, and how did you feel in the moment you knew you were having a daughter?
Pressure and scared. I was not ready. I found out I was having my daughter at 21, and the woman, my daughter's mother, was nearly 10 years older than me. So she was in
Mm-hmm.
a very complete different space in life and mindset than what I was as being a 21-year-old kid. I was definitely nervous. I was scared. But all of that pushed me to wanting to make a change for myself.
I got you. So, and obviously I think she's been a big part of your life so far, and like, doing on all this online business stuff, going from gym launch with Alex Hormozi, then working for Iman and stuff. Like, was it all for her? Were you like making money for her? Or was there like a different mindset shift there of like, now I have to make it work?
Yeah, it definitely was for her. Everything still what I do is for her. Me being
Mm-hmm.
on this podcast, in hindsight, it's for her so that
Mm-hmm.
I could continue growing myself to give her the best life that I could, and so forth. So that she is probably the biggest thing in my head when it comes to making decisions is it going to
Mm-hmm.
make me a better father? And is it going to give my daughter a better life?
That makes sense. So when you're making like any decisions, like big or small, it kind of comes down to like, is this going to make me a better father? And is this going to give my daughter a better life?
Yeah.
How have you enjoyed having a daughter, or how has that been so far?
Yeah, I love it, bro. I was super, super scared when I found out I was first having her,
Mm-hmm.
especially with it being 2 months into COVID, bro. I felt like the world was ending
Yeah, that's
at the
true.
time. I remember one, not telling my parents. I ended up having to move back in with them. So I lived on my own. I got kicked out of my house once I found out, or once I decided to not go to college.
Yep.
My parents said, all right, go figure your shit out the house. And when COVID hit, I ended up having to move back home because I lost my job, right? They shut everything down.
Yep.
Then 2 months later, I found out I'm having a daughter.
Wow.
So, I remember being extremely nervous and I parking my car in at different parks or places with a view where you could see the city every single night during that time, and just sitting there for 2 hours at a time, writing in a notebook, writing my thoughts, trying to get my shit together. So yeah, at the time I was fucking scared, but there's really two routes you could go with that. I mean, one, it scares you to run away from the situation, or two,
Mm-hmm.
it scares you to take action to make a change. And luckily I made the correct decision to take action and make a change.
Did you live in like the suburbs or downtown Los Angeles? Like, where did your parents live that you moved back to?
Yeah, I grew up in Orange County, and then we moved towards the Inland Empire. So yeah, they lived in the Inland Empire area.
Is that close to like the place? Because you said you were driving to like see a view like almost every night. Was that actually every night? And then
Yeah.
like, looking at it and thinking everything over and like writing things in a notebook and stuff? Or was that just like sometimes?
Yeah, literally every night. And I I do wear my heart on my sleeve sometimes, like crying some nights, sitting in my car, just
Mm-hmm.
like worried that I can't take care of myself. How the hell am I going to take care of a little girl?
Yeah.
But yeah, in California, if people haven't gone here that are listening, I mean, you could be in the mountains in 30 minutes, from
Mm-hmm.
Southern California. So there's a lot of hills in the Inland Empire. So I would just drive up to a park on the hills and
Wow.
watch the overview, think, pray, write, try and come up with a plan.
Do you think that helped you in your journey doing that?
There's a fine line, but I do believe in manifestation. Just because you manifest something and say it every time in the mirror doesn't mean it'll come to you. It's the action that will get there. But I do think that it helped me with manifesting the direction I need to go, and then me having a clear enough head to know what action to take.
Like, manifesting is a great way for a lot of people to do it, but at the same time, you have to take a serious action,
Yeah.
just like you said.
Yeah, Jim Carrey, I've seen a video of him talking about how he used to manifest living in Mulholland Drive, which for people who don't know, it's one of the richest areas you could live in Los Angeles. What he doesn't talk about is the extreme action that he took behind that manifestation. So he talks about how he used to drive in the hills in Mulholland Drive, sit here on a cliff and spread his arms and scream to the world about everything it is that he wanted. And I love that video, but I think it hides the fact of the extreme action and the hard work that Jim Carrey put into bring that manifestation to real life.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece that people forget to include. It's like, yeah, manifest, write down your goals,
Yeah.
do a lot of these things, but it's like you gotta also like work almost all day. Like
Right.
it takes like you can speak more on this, but like what does it take to be successful and like do everything you have, being able to take care of a daughter and like also make the money you have? Like how much work does that actually take?
Takes obsession, and it just takes understanding what your big picture is. A lot of hours. Today I'm still in sales, you guys. So, today I worked nearly a 10-hour day. So certain days while I'm working 7 days a week, 6 days a week. Of course, everything is a balance, and I give my daughter the time that she needs with me as well. I find it difficult thinking that you'll succeed without obsession and hard work.
Kind of going down like a rabbit hole and like being successful here, but I think it's important, like, you have the mindset of like manifesting it, seeing what's out there, the perspectives. You also have like obsession and putting in the work and all that stuff. Are those like the two main pieces, or do you like
Sacrifice.
gym, religion, like do any of that play a factor into it?
Oh, of course, bro. One big thing is sacrifice as well. You either sacrifice your goals for the things you love, or you sacrifice the things you love for your goals.
Oh yeah, that's big Sam Ovens right there.
Yeah.
You got to sacrifice for your goals, or your goals will become the sacrifice.
Yeah, you sacrifice for your goals, or your goals will become the sacrifice. So, that's still a battle I have in my head, because I do a lot of times feel a little bit bad that, I can't sit here and be with my daughter 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. For example, right now I'm in my home in Los Angeles. It's a big 4-bedroom house, and my daughter's not here. I haven't seen her in a couple days, and I've been working a lot the past couple days. But it's that thing in my head where I understand my big picture. I understand where I want to go and how it's going to benefit Lila in the long term. And that sometimes you got to sacrifice things in the short term. That way you have what you want in the long term.
Seems like, I know who was talking about this the other day. Ty Lopez was talking about how Elon and a lot of these successful people, they had kids before they were 30, and he feels like that's the natural way of doing things, because you're more inclined to like, have kids, you go out and meet people, meet girls as a guy when you're in that age. And so it seems like for you, like that's kind of like your rock and everything you do, like having a daughter, like even though it might not have been like completely expected or anything like that, like it seems like it's helped you a lot in all of this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. It changed my life and changed the path that I was going to go down. And Elon Musk is a huge comparison.
I'm like, you and Elon are the same guy.
I'm marching towards a really good direction. And I don't regret at all having a daughter. And, I really enjoy that I will be 40 years old when my daughter's 18.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to see her grandkids and probably her kids and her kids' kids. So I don't regret that at all. And I think the world has shifted a lot to where people don't want to have a kid at a young age. And it's probably the thing that they need to make the changes that they want in their life. So have a kid young.
Bro, Elon's clapping right now. He wants everyone to have kids. He's like, we have a population problem. Everyone have kids.
Yeah. I think it's the wrong person that are having too many kids. I think that's part of the issue.
I think that is a big part of it. And I think that's a lot of great stuff on like success and like motivation stuff to get where you're at. And kind of going back to like the path of sales, and like you transition from e-commerce to sales. Do you feel like if you were to start all over again, that you would just start in sales? Like that's the best path starting out?
100%, bro.
And why is that?
In hindsight, I don't regret doing e-commerce because it's what pushed me towards this path of finding Hormozi, hearing about Jacob, getting into sales, and now making the money that I am. At the same time, I did not have the skills that I needed to be successful
Yep.
with e-commerce. I learned a lot of good things, but I really do feel like sales is a cornerstone that a lot of people need to make the change in their life and also start developing the skills that they need so that they could run a successful business in the future.
Would you recommend it for just like guys? Like obviously sales traditionally, car sales, solar sales, like a lot of it's been in person. I know a lot of it's like transitioning over Zoom and stuff now, but like
Yeah.
would you recommend to both men and women or just like guys or
Not at all. So if anything, I actually saw this. There was a study that the best salesperson tend to be women. Reason being is that one, they have a motherly aura to them. They're able to get people to open up more. And if they're still sharp, they could still be a savage and still close deals. Not at all. If anything, you could be a stronger salesperson as a woman, sometimes as a man.
no, that makes sense because I know there's like a lot of stuff that goes around like, oh, woman, just cooking and stuff because I think you and I both know like a lot of women that do very well in sales, like on
Yeah.
different teams and stuff.
They're able to build trust so much faster
Yep.
with the prospect. So get them to open up more, to really talk about why they're there, what's holding them back from their goals. It's just that instinct to where more people are comfortable than opening up and speaking like that with a woman, and they're able to get the information that they need. That way they could close the deal and make it a logical decision for the
Yeah.
buyer.
Let's just say like you recommend sales obviously like is a great like starting point even though marketing and e-commerce did very well for you.
Yeah.
And like you also talked about how joining a big company like Gym Launch where they have proven processes and yes, you might not be making as much at first, but you're learning so much from people ahead of you and there's so much potential to grow. So it's like you have the opportunity, you have the vehicle to go in. Now it's like, for example, like when you're selling these offers for Iman or these big names, like how does that process go for you? Like how do you get people to like spend so much money on these things?
I mean, one, sure, maybe I wasn't making so much money in Gym Launch, but I went from working multiple jobs, 16-hour days usually as bartending. I'd work one job in the morning, one job in the evening just to bring home. And I was doing that usually 6 days a week to bring home 3 to 4K. I work at Gym Launch and I start making 4K on a shitty month, usually around 6 to 7K, cold calling and settings. So, people have a kind of a stigma like when you start in sales, you're going to make shit pay.
Yeah.
It's not always true, and of course, 4 to 7K, you're not making a ton, but that's a huge shift for me. That's what people are making with degrees coming out of school.
Yeah, because that comes out to like 72 to like $84,000 a year when you're like 6 to 7K a month, just as like a setter position, like you said.
Yeah.
For that, I know you throw around these numbers like 6 or 7K. Like, obviously, there's other setters on the team. Is that like the higher end of people? Like, how are you performing, and like what led to that performance of doing well as a setter?
Yeah, that was definitely the biggest months that I had as a setter with Gym Launch. So average, I was making about 5K per month, which is still really good.
It's really good,
especially I was working remotely. I was working from home. I had a daughter that was living in the same house for me, a baby that I'd have to take care of in between my day sometimes if I didn't have someone watching her and so forth.
I think a big thing that we haven't touched on either that I've seen so much with you just like being around and knowing you for a little bit and like knowing other salespeople as well is like, I don't think people emphasize the flexibility so much with these sales positions because, say 4 or 5, 8K a month, whatever the number is, like, what does your schedule look like in terms of flexibility? Do you have to like, is it strict? Are you kind of take care of your daughter?
I have every freedom that someone would want. Sure, I'm not necessarily making millions in sales, but I have time freedom. I have location freedom. I control my schedule. I could work from anywhere. All I need is Wi-Fi and a laptop, and I control the times that I want to work.
Yeah.
So certain days I get stressed. I know I mentioned like working 6 days a week, 12 hours days. And that's because
You choose to.
I choose to, and I like to consider myself a high performance individual, which is why I do do those things. But for example, if there's a day where I need to shift things around, that way I could pick my daughter up from school or not miss an event, like I 100% have that liberty. If I want to take Wednesday off and push my day from Wednesday to Saturday instead, so I could have Wednesday with my kid, I have that freedom. And so I do get stressed a lot, but then I think about how blessed I am, because I remember very well being forced to work a schedule through restaurant and bartending jobs that I could not control, and I had no choice. And if I called off, I'd get in trouble.
I mean, yeah, like especially having a kid, like I know you're always saying, "Oh, I wish I could spend more time with my daughter," which I know it's your kid, like it's your everything. You want to spend as much time as you can with her, but at the same time, like we were kind of talking about the other day about how most parents they kind of don't have as much freedom to spend time with their kids. Like when you're growing up, did your parents always spend time with you and have that flexibility?
Not at all. I mean, my parents did the best that they could. They had me very young. And now as an adult, I'm so appreciative because I know that they did the best that they could. So yeah, I've been very lucky. I think that's very common for most parents, that especially with the way the world is structured and, having to work, slave these hours for pay, they don't really have a choice or have the liberty to be able to have that freedom. And neither did my parents a lot of times. So there was a lot of times where, they're picking me up late from school because they have no choice, or they're missing certain events because they had to work. I am very lucky in that sense. And when I think about it, about how much freedom I have in sales and the money that I can make with it as well.
Well, I was also going to say, because your restaurant job, they don't, I mean, maybe like DoorDash and stuff, they have restaurants that are other places, but you have to physically be at those restaurants. Whereas with sales, you don't have to physically be in any one spot.
So that was a, huge benefit. And I know a lot of people, for me, I'm pretty tied down to California because of my daughter, but I have so many people on the team and other sales guys that I know that literally travel the world making 10, 20, 30K per month in sales. And they're living in different locations for 3 months at a time. Seeing the world, making good money, making new connections and so forth. So most jobs, you don't have that liberty.
Obviously, we're kind of present day with your story here. You're still selling for Iman, and they have grown the company so much since you've joined.
Yeah.
Are you still a closer there? And how much money have you closed there since joining?
Yeah. So I'm still in a closing and leadership role as well. So training a lot of salespeople that come onto the team, training closers, helping with sales processes. But I've been there for 15 months and I've closed over $2 million at the company.
$2 million, wow. And I think that partly has to do with the brand exploding and because when you joined, when he had 150K subscribers on YouTube, would you still be hitting those numbers, or is that a lot to do with the other stuff?
Definitely not. I mean, when I first started, my pay started increasing month by month as Iman started growing. So my first month, I remember I made 12K. Month 2, he goes up to 300K subscribers. I'm making 15 to 17K. Month 3, I'm making 20. Month 4, I believe I made 35K, and it just kind of kept growing from there. So,
wow, those are really some crazy numbers. When you're hitting 20, 30, 40K plus months, I mean, that's a high level doctor salary in Los Angeles, or somebody that's went to a prestigious school and stuff. How did it feel making that amount of money for the first time?
My parents never understood what I was doing. I remember I'm working for some YouTuber sales and be like, all right, do your thing. I'm sitting in the garage all day on my shitty laptop with my headphones in, calling people. And I remember during that time, I went through a solid 4-month grind, tons of hours, when I first started working for Iman. I remember the day I got a $35,000 check, I showed my dad the check and his jaw dropped, and I was like, he's like, how, what'd you make this month? And I told him, no, like 35. And he's like, what do you mean, like 3,500? And I was like, no, 35,000. And he was just astonished. So I remember showing him the leaderboard because I took first place for those months. And yeah, it was life-changing, ultimately, making that money.
No, that's crazy. And you were the top closer at the time when you were hitting those numbers?
Always, bro. Always top closer.
Bro, have you always been the top closer at all your offers?
Yeah, I'd average. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I were to average it, I'm always the top closer. Of course, there's months where, salespeople go into slumps and so forth. So, there's months where second place or third place, but yeah, average out, I'm usually top closer.
No, that's super cool. And I think the journey's been like pretty crazy so far, from like having a daughter, working for like a lot of these big people, doing it for so long now. Do you still enjoy sales?
I enjoy teaching sales. It is funny, but I do feel like I'm better at teaching sales than I am actually selling. And I'm pretty good with sales.
Yep.
And that's not to say that I dislike it at this point, because I still do enjoy it, especially when you're working for people and a company and an offer that you believe in.
Yeah.
But I really do feel like that's the next step for me, is teaching sales. And it's a journey, teaching people how to go down the same path that I did.
No, I completely agree with that. Obviously, like anything will get tedious as you go with it.
Yeah.
Another thing I'm kind of interested in is you've worked for arguably, I mean, not like, there's like the Grant Cardones and the Gary V's and stuff, but just like very currently as we're filming this, like I would say Alex, Hormozi, and Iman take the top spots in the entrepreneur, like following space with attention, everything. Who did you like working for better?
I never got to have that one-on-one experience with Hormozi. So it's hard to make that decision with Iman. I've met him. He's flown me out to London. I've met him a couple times. We have a marathon that I'm running with him here in a couple weeks. So just based off that one-on-one connection and the money that I've made, I'd have to say Iman.
It's always the money play.
Yeah, but I can never forget where I've come from. And,
yeah.
Hormozi is so good at building a company. And if it wasn't for me going into that vehicle, I wouldn't be here now. So,
I mean, I feel like they both like changed your life in like one way or another, and it's been super helpful. So, like people don't just need like one mentor. Sometimes it takes like multiple people to really help them in the long run. I think a question a lot of people would wonder about Iman is like, what is he like behind the scenes? Is he like a super genius to be, multiple eight-figure net worth at 23, or like, what is he really like?
I remember watching Iman's videos, and he always says, if I could do it, you could do it too. And that's very relatable. And when you meet Iman, you realize how true that is. Not in a bad way. He's a very smart guy. He is great at building a team. He is great at marketing himself and sharing a story and being relatable. But truthfully, that is what I learned when meeting Iman, was like, hey, this kid is smart, yes, but me saying that he's smart, he has gifts, would take away from all the hard work and obsession that he had that got him there. So it goes back to what I said earlier, that I really do feel like being successful, it takes obsession and hard work, and that's what he had.
So you're saying that Iman was just like a normal guy, like most kids that knew what was out there, he knew what he could aspire to, and he just put in the work like no one else and just consistently did that?
I'd say he definitely outworked everyone. And I wouldn't say normal in a bad way, because Iman is very, very smart. Smarter than most people. But me saying that his success is based off him being a genius or smart would take away from the fact of how much of a hard worker and how much grit that he had that got him there.
No, I feel like that too. And like, do you think it was just the work, or did like timing also play like a good factor in all of that?
Yeah, everything is always a little bit of timing. It's like where hard work meets timing meets luck. Even for myself, right?
You said you joined Gym Launch at a good time.
Yeah, right. But at the same time, the hard work that I put into e-commerce, what led me to researching things about business, to taking a risk where my hard work meant timing, meant a little bit of luck that pushed me down this path. So
That covers like a lot of it.
yeah.
I guess the only question left is like, you've gotten really good at sales, you've dabbled in e-commerce, like kind of what's the path more so like moving forward for you? Are you going to continue in the online business space and working with a lot of great people, a lot of big names, or what's that kind of look like?
Yeah. The reason why I really enjoyed and wanted to work for Iman, my big picture, my goal is always how can I change lives at a mass scale, right? Mass scale keyword, and I felt like I have that with Iman. So as far as next steps for myself, I've thought about a lot. Obviously I'm very well versed in sales now at this point to where I could start building sales team, training salespeople, and so forth. But that's really the lens that I look through things. It's like, hey, whatever it is I choose to do, am I changing lives at a mass scale?
So for you at the core of like every decision, obviously like your family, your daughter, a lot of these playing a big piece, but like the mission, the other thing that like you're kind of working towards is how can you change lives at a mass scale?
That's why I'm on this podcast. I'm hoping that maybe...
Is that in a positive way?
Yeah, in a positive way, that I'm hoping that even if it's a couple hundred people...
Well, I think that about covers it. I think that's a great mission to like end off here, brother.
Dun, dun, dun.
I appreciate you coming on. We got through number one here. It was a little bit shaky setting it up, but I think it was super solid hearing your story and stuff. But yeah, I really do appreciate the time here.
I appreciate you, bro.